I appreciate the compliment. It is the thing I care about most. I guess that's not true. The thing I care about most in this industry is calling live boxing. And it's my passion. It's my favorite thing in the world, and that's all I want to do. But interviews is the thing I'm most proud of, right? I write too. I do a lot of different types of on-camera work. I realized early that, especially in the fight game, everyone you're going to talk to is, unless you can network and develop a special relationship with a trainer, a manager, promoter, whatever. I mean, there's ways you can do that. But everyone you're going to talk to is largely going to be talking to you in an agreed upon 10 to 15 minute window as part of a larger set of interviews that day, as part of a larger set of interviews that fight camp. And essentially, you're going to get somebody giving the same interview, especially for a pay-per-view fight week, right? By the time they get to you, they've given that same interview 57,000 times. And what I quickly realized is that everyone, it doesn't have to be famous people, anyone who is either interviewed or asked to relive something on a regular basis, right? Let's say, there's a retired old player, and every time a kid runs into him, hey, you played in the World Series, tell me about it. Everybody's got a stock answer. It's their own narrative, and they know where to insert the jokes. They know where to insert the doubt. They know how to tell it, right? It's beautiful. But when everybody's giving the same questions to get the same answers, nothing is going to separate you. And I look back on my life, and I was always told by people two things that are related but don't seem like it. Even though I have no background in psychology and I'm a college dropout and all of that, I've been told I read people well and understand what makes them tick. And maybe that's understanding what sets people off, because I've done that so often too. But simultaneous with that is, everywhere I've worked, whether it's at the grocery store or, this fast food place, just inquisitive. I'm naturally over the top inquisitive. People would always say that was the joke at Stop and Shop in the late 90s in Naugatuck, Connecticut. What, are you writing a book? Why are you asking me about my ex-wife? Why are you asking me about my late child? What, are you writing a book? I'm just like, no, it's interesting. I think people are interesting. So having that foundation certainly helps. But I got to a point of doing the same interviews of everyone else that I started to think, look, I've got to create moments that make these interviews special. And what I started to realize is that everyone's got that, like I talked about, that either the pre-stocked answer ready in the chamber because they know the questions that are coming, but simultaneously, they also have walls built up, right? They don't necessarily want to talk about this. They don't want, you know what I'm saying? So what I've learned is that, and the best thing I could have learned is 75% of the interviews I've done in mixed martial arts, boxing, and in the time I was a pro wrestling national writer, a lot of times you're getting, like I said, 10 to 15 minutes. With WWE, it would be sometimes, hey, we'll give you John Cena, but it's 8 minutes and you must ask 2 pre-planned questions, right? I mean, because there's a negotiation usually with sometimes, okay? That has given me, there's a lot of guys that won't even do those interviews. Like, it's a waste of my time. That has put me in a microwave throughout my career to realize I have to get to the point quick. But to get to the point, there's a setup. Sometimes you have to float a question that you don't even care about the answer because you're just trying to disarm them. And when you only have 6 or 8 minutes or 10 minutes or 15, which is still a very short amount of time, especially if someone is like me, they're a long talker who talks in circles, but is constantly trying to keep you there out of fear that people are just going to walk away from me. I mean, I did grow up with a dad who loved me, but he worked a million hours. And when he came home and I tried to hit him with 20 questions about everything, he'd go, okay, here's the new rule. You get 2 questions. So make them really good. I mean, that's like a training ground for these type of interviews, right? Like how to not lose people's attention. That's what this is all fueled upon. It's really out of fear and insecurity because I'm expecting people to lose interest and start to turn away and go, man, who the hell is this guy? But back to the interviews, when I have a short amount of time, I've got to find something. And I've learned over time, and I've become more fearless in this endeavor because look, it's questions, it's words. I'm not afraid if somebody hangs up on me. I'm not afraid if somebody swears me out. I'm not looking to ignite fights, but I'm looking to create content. And it's not nefarious. But there are ways to ask difficult questions. There's ways to layer the words to make the interviewee feel like, oh, you're on their side, but you're just presenting the view of critics to them. Also, there are times where I've had interviewed somebody, let's say 4 or 5 times over a multi-year span. A Donald Cowboy Cerrone in the UFC, who's one of historically the worst interviews ever. Yet I kept accepting them because I said, no, I'm going to be the one that's going to get him to say something. Sometimes you have to piss people off purposefully. Not in a nefarious way, but in a, let's get right to the hot button and I'll press the button right now and see how you respond. If you're willing to do that, And if it's not just, hey, I'm chasing clicks, it's not what it's about. I'm chasing moments. I'm trying to make someone watch my interviews, and whether they are laughing at me, angry at me, excited, can't wait to see more, right? Any of those things work for me in that regard, because I'm not afraid to ask tough questions. I know how to get to those questions. And I feel like the more you study personalities, and this comes with time when you're covering a certain sport for many years, you start to figure out that everybody's got a weakness. Everybody, as much as they try to present, I'm not going to talk about this topic, or I've got my canned answer for this topic. Once you get them past those walls, you've got them. Not got them to trap them. You've got the real them. And that's the difference. They want to give you the fake you. I could sit here and just tell you, hey man, I worked hard. I'm so happy to be in this career. End of answer. But no, I'm going to talk in circles for 15 minutes per answer because it feels like you're okay with that. But my point on that is, like, you have to know what makes people tick and what sets them off. And if you do it right, if you do it politely, if you do it with respect, you can do it. In the moments, I'm always looking at the clock. I know like the back of my hand how many minutes has expired. I could just feel the time, right? I've done a million of these 6 to 15 minute interviews. I know the time I have left in those, and I am constantly putting out little bait here and there. But to finally answer your question, along the way, I realized that I don't need to do prep. As long as I know who these people are, I know their life situation, the less prep I found, this is me personally, the less prep I do, I get better interviews. You've always heard about people like Larry King who don't do any research. That's his gimmick. The point is, I'm going to ask you like a layman. You look at somebody like, in my space, one of my biggest competitors, but also a friend, Ariel Helwani, never writes down interview questions, but always knows where he wants to be. I'll tell you why, a key part of why Ariel's great. He's the best listener that we have. As much as he gets critiqued for jumping in and installing narratives, we all install narratives. Believe me, we're all trying to get to a certain point in the conversation. But Ariel, and I learned this from watching him, incredible listener, will often ask a question based on one little tick he heard in an answer. And that tick could be the way somebody pronounced something, the delay in them answering the question, whatever. You need to become a student of psychology. I'm not a book smart student of psychology, but I'm a student of tells. I'm a student of reactions. I'm trying to create reactions that will lead to more in-depth conversation, because I want those walls to come down as fast as possible, because very rarely are you going to get an hour with somebody. I want those walls to come down, and I want it to get real. And the greatest gift in this game as an interviewer, it's not when your interview gets 100,000 views or 1 million or whatever your range that you're looking for is. It's when you get somebody who already did 50 interviews on the same topic to tell a story or provide a reveal that not only they haven't, but that they didn't expect that they would talk about, right? And what you'll find, and this is where I still play old man basketball, and it's been a joke on my podcast a lot. I still play over 40 basketball, and I'm constantly getting into, I'm not a fighter, I'm not a jerk, but I get in near skirmish situations by being too over competitive. And what I've learned a long time ago, trying to stay on the court in elite pickup games when I'm just some garbage man rebounder, I set picks, I'm a smart guy, but I'm not athletic, whatever. I learned that sometimes the only way I can stay on the court is by trying to slow someone down defensively by getting in their head. Everybody's got a weakness. Everybody's got to tell. And my job, I think, as an interviewer is just trying to expose that. But again, it's not for bad. Sometimes I want to tell that heartwarming story or that story about somebody having a horrible childhood, but maybe they haven't really fleshed that out. I'll be a chameleon and become the supportive person because I'm trying to get fresh, new content. So it can piss people off, not afraid of that. And I think at the end of the day, I want to be looked at as genuine, but I'm working in these interviews. I'm working the entire time trying to find something in there. And I think that's the greatest challenge in this game. And it's the most rewarding, without question.